Welcome to episode 1 of The Faithful Trainer. I'm your host, Colton Millette, and in this episode, we're gonna go ahead and hit chest and triceps, but I'm also gonna walk you through the 3 parts of my testimony that led me to having a relationship with Jesus. All right, before we get into our chest and triceps workout, we're gonna wanna make sure that we do a proper warm-up. The very first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and release our traps. We're gonna mobilize our hips. We're also gonna go ahead and release our chest, and we're gonna go ahead and mobilize our mid-back. These 4 areas, for you to be able to get stronger, for the movements to feel good without pain, this is gonna be crucial for us to start with this before going into our chest and triceps workout. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and first start by releasing the trap. So you're gonna go ahead and take a ball like this. A lot of gyms might not have this, so trigger point balls are what I recommend. You can get them on Amazon. Super great in terms of releasing the trap. So we're gonna take the ball, we're gonna go ahead and find that trap, we're gonna go ahead and get into position, and we're gonna go ahead and find a trigger point. Okay, this is an area where you're just tight, okay, and you're gonna feel it. I call it searching for gold, okay? So when you find the gold, you're then gonna go ahead and turn your thumb up, and you're gonna go ahead and just do a snow angel movement, okay, right up to the ear. I like to imagine the biceps touching the ear, and you're gonna go ahead and come back down. And we're just gonna go ahead and do a couple of snow angels on both sides. So switch when you're ready. Okay, find the gold and do a couple of snow angels on both sides. Next, we're gonna go ahead and take the ball to the actual chest, specifically the pec minor. Now the pec minor is gonna be kind of by the armpit area here. When you're ready, you're gonna go ahead and go back down to the floor. You're gonna go ahead and find that pec minor by placing the ball on that pec minor. And again, same thing. We're gonna go ahead and now just reach up and back down, reach up and back down, much like a lat pull down. You're gonna go ahead and do that on both ends. After doing those 2, you should automatically feel that you're a little bit lighter, shoulders are decompressed, and you're ready to then move into the mobility piece. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and move into the mobility. You're gonna go ahead and find a short foam roller, okay? And this is what we like to call the open book. The idea is that we're gonna open up the chest capsule, and then we're also gonna go ahead and mobilize the T-spine. So you're gonna go ahead and get into the fetal position here, okay? Just like so. And you're gonna go ahead and take the foam roller, and you're gonna go ahead and align it between your knees. It's super important that you actually press your knees together. And now we're gonna go ahead and just open a page in a book. It's important that my head is down, so I'm relaxed. I'm gonna reach over my fingertips, and I'm gonna go ahead and follow my hand with my eyes, and I'm gonna go ahead and open up the page of the book. It's important that you exhale your breath as the hand comes around your body. You inhale your breath as you reach your fingertips over your opposite hand. Now exhale here. Then you're gonna go ahead and inhale. Okay, we just have 2 more mobility exercises to mobilize the hips and as well as the chest. So the first thing we're gonna do here is the 90-90. Now for this, you can go ahead and start with your hands behind your back and your heels to your bum. You bring your heels to your bum, and now you're gonna go ahead and split the knees, okay? So this right knee comes down like so, and it's important that, again, you keep good posture with your chest up and your shoulder blades back. From here, it's important to shove your heels, both of them, into the ground. This is now gonna go ahead and bring the knee up, just like so, keeping your heels down into the ground with your chest up, good posture, and then you're gonna go ahead and just do the opposite on both sides, okay? Now, for more advanced people, you can go ahead and take your hands from your back, and you can go ahead and keep them in front. My hips are super tight, so we're not gonna do that. All right, that second exercise we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna do a supine, like lat pull down type exercise. I love this for my chest. So all I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go ahead and do a wall slide with my knees up, my core, my belly button's gonna be sucked in. Okay, my arms are gonna be behind me, my head is gonna be resting on the ground, okay, and with my belly button in to keep my spine in line, I'm now gonna go ahead and just reach over my head like I'm doing a wall slide. You wanna make sure that you're keeping your forearms, okay, and elbows touching the turf as you're coming up like so, and you're just really gonna feel that chest opening up the whole entire time. Okay, so the first exercise we have is the dumbbell bench press. So we're gonna do a total of 5 sets here. We're gonna go ahead and do 2 ramp up sets, and then we're gonna do 3 working sets, okay? The very first dumbbell that you're going to choose is going to be a lighter dumbbell, okay? This is simply for you to just warm up. So you're going to warm up with 10, and then we're going to move to 8, and then we're going to go ahead in what I like to call a max 3. This is the most amount of weight that you choose that you could do for 3 total reps. I love to work out this way because then for the following week, I'm able to move up my weight like 5 pounds, and then I can go ahead and get motivated because I'm getting stronger. So we're gonna go 10, then we're gonna choose a heavier dumbbell to go 8, and then you're gonna get 3 separate tries to go ahead and do the most amount of weight you can do for 8, or excuse me, you can do for 3. So think about this like a ladder, okay? And at the top of the ladder is gonna be the max 3. Now, with the dumbbell bench press, it's super important, guys, that we're staying at about a 45-degree angle, so therefore we can take the shoulders out of the movement. So you're gonna start with the dumbbells right here on your knees. You're gonna go ahead and go right, and then left, and then immediately fall back. Bring your heels to your butt, and then from here, again, you wanna make sure that your shoulder blades are down, and then you're gonna go ahead and turn your pinkies in to bring your dumbbells at a 45-degree angle. You're gonna go ahead and then retract your elbows just like so, okay? Stopping just below 90 degrees. Drive those heels, drive your head into the bench, and then move the dumbbells up in one motion. So you're gonna inhale down, you're gonna exhale as you come up. The things that I want you guys to focus on that are going down, my heels are going down, my head's going down into the bench. I'm keeping the 45-degree angle on my elbows, okay? And I'm finding the width that I feel in my chest, okay? Now, people that have longer arms might have to go wider in the width of the dumbbells. People that have arms like my width, you're gonna go ahead and find this sweet spot kind of right in the middle there. You wanna make sure that you're bringing the dumbbells in, so therefore you can squeeze the pencil between your chest at the top of the movement. So the 3 things that led me to having a relationship with Jesus were family hardship, my relationships, and my mental health, specifically dealing with anxiety and panic attacks. And so I grew up in Manchester, New Hampshire, and I grew up with my mom and my sister. My dad was in the picture when I was a young boy until he got a job opportunity in North Carolina. My sister and I, we would always go back and forth, right? We would switch weekends, so sometimes we'd be at my dad's, and then sometimes we'd be at my mom's, up until maybe like ages 7. And so my dad was in my life really up into that point, and then obviously it just became harder for me to be able to see him, right, when he moved to North Carolina, just because we grew up in New Hampshire. And so with that transition, of course, that led my mom, right, to really raise my sister and I. And so for the longest time, you know, I would just see my mom struggle. I mean, I would see her struggle with her mental health. That mental health would then cause a lot of stress, and then that stress obviously would cause health issues for her. And so, you know, seeing her deal with those things was always, you know, challenging, you know, for a boy, right? He obviously wanted to see his mom happy. And, you know, I would say that through this process, obviously there were challenges, there were struggles, and a lot of that was financially. And of course, you know, a lot of that was me just witnessing my mom's stress. And, you know, sometimes she would bring that home just because she was exhausted, right? Having to obviously financially provide for my sister and I. And so I would say that, you know, seeing my mom's strength, right? We grew up in the church. We were Catholic growing up. And so my sister and I, we kind of had an idea of who God was. And we always believed that, you know, our strength comes from him. Just because my mom and my meme, my grandmother, she would always pray with rosary beads at night because we grew up Catholic. And, you know, we were in CCD and we went to summer camp, but I was mainly there to just hang out with the boys, okay? But anywho, right? I saw my mom's strength through a lot of the hardships that she had dealt with, right? Raising my sister and I. The biggest thing that I would say with family, though, for me, was really just kind of seeing my cousin walk through his addiction. Unfortunately, my cousin, he still struggles with this. I think, praise God, he's sober, I think, for the last 2 years now, which is just amazing. And mind you, he's like 43. So this was a lifelong struggle for him, you know, dealing with being in the wrong crowds and then just going down the wrong paths, dealing with all sorts of drugs. Eventually ending up to heroin. And so constantly seeing the decisions that my cousin made that ended up with him being in jail and in and out of jail, I witnessed, you know, what it's like for someone to go through a lonely season, right? I witnessed someone that experienced not wanting to put burden on people's shoulders and shutting out the world, right? Going to isolation for him to be able to struggle alone. I witnessed that really throughout his whole entire life, and I'm still witnessing it today. And that's really challenging for me to be able to watch. However, what really makes me believe that God is real is that my cousin, he has overdosed a ton. He's overdosed. And there's been times where he literally died, where we thought he was going to be gone, right? But somehow, by the grace of God, he was able to, again, get revived and be okay, right? And again, praise God, he's 2 years sober into this day. And so that's another reason why I would say I believe in God, is because I quite literally saw my cousin deal with isolation, depression, and then also using drugs to kind of fill that void or that struggle or whatever he was feeling internally. Okay, so for our tricep exercise, we're gonna go ahead and just do a rope tricep extension, okay? And what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go ahead and do 3 working sets of 12 to 15, and then you're gonna do 1 more final set to failure. That means you're gonna go ahead and exhaust yourself for as many reps as you can do. And so with this exercise, you're gonna wanna make sure that there's tension already on the tricep. So we're gonna go ahead and just do a little staggered stance here with my left foot in front of the other, okay? And I wanna make sure that I'm keeping the tension on the tri by stopping just above 90 degrees and then taking a moment to squeeze my tricep at the bottom of this the movement here, okay? So I'm pushing, I'm spreading the rope so I can go ahead and get my triceps there. I'm taking a good 1 Mississippi to squeeze that tricep at the bottom of the movement. Okay, we're going to do 12 to 15 total. Just go at a nice slow tempo, so therefore you can go ahead and actually feel that tricep throughout the whole entire movement. This one is super personal for me, and honestly, at times, it had me on my knees because I found out that I could not do this alone, right? And my relationships, and specifically my heartbreaks, are one of the biggest things that I still struggle with. To anyone that said that after accepting Jesus, things are gonna be like unicorns and like Skittles, that is so not true, guys. And I don't know who needs to hear this, but yes, the Lord is always going to love you, and we are called to trust in his plan for us. But it doesn't mean that the journey is going to be easy, but I promise you that Jesus is going to be by your side throughout it all. And I can be someone to raise my hand to say, God has been there for me, specifically through my heartbreaks. And the biggest thing, and I don't think that we realize this, is that when we're during, you know, a challenging relationship, you know, a lot of the habits that we saw and that we were exposed to as a kid, they carry into our relationships. And for me specifically, it's been control. it's been really making the relationship about me, my wants, my needs, without me honestly even realizing it. And unfortunately, I get stuck with creating a narrative in a relationship of how I want that person to be and how I want that relationship to be. And this has been a really big struggle for me, that again, it stems from control, because our brains are wired for certainty, right? We're inherently selfish people, and so we want what we want, right? And our intentions, they could be good, but unfortunately your intentions only go halfway, and it's not really going to be the reason why a relationship is healthy versus one that's not. But specifically for me, whenever I dealt with heartbreak, it really was a cycle of me playing victim, right, to a version of the person that I wanted them to be, right? It was playing victim to a story that I was creating in my head, and this was my brain's way of keeping me safe. And I heard a podcast recently, talk about how, we do not like the unknown, right? We are wired for certainty. And so when we go through a heartbreak, there's a whole lot of unknown. There's a whole lot of empty road in front of us, and we do not like that, right? And so sometimes it's easier for us to play victim to a story, to kind of sulk in the pain, right? To play the blame game on ourselves, right? It's easy to blame ourselves, to go throughout this struggle and create a narrative, right? Because it's just easier for us to then, I guess, get into the car and then going on an unknown road, right? And so this has really kind of been a culprit for me in my relationships, is that when something ends, I have a really hard time with accepting the ending. I try to control the ending by creating a narrative that I want to be true, but unfortunately that narrative really only leads me to hurting myself more. And I don't know who needs to hear this, but the only way that we are going to be able to have the new beginnings that God wants for us is for us to be able to accept the past. It's not to relive the past, because when we relive the past, all we're doing is we're affirming an identity that we're wrapping up in what happened. And this identity could look like that I'm not enough, that I'm always the guy that gets left behind, right? That I'm always the guy to mess things up, right? It becomes about us, right? And all we're doing is we're making the relationship about us. We're putting ourselves on a low pedestal, right? Because we think that we deserve to go through the pain. But let me say this, and I hope this is for someone. You are enough. You have talents and gifts, and God does not want you feeling the way that you're feeling. He doesn't want you playing victim to your narrative that is a false narrative in your head. He doesn't want you playing victim to the, what if I change this way? What if I said something differently? If you live in a what if scenario, this is going to be a never-ending cycle of us not getting off the starting line, of us not embracing the uncertainty, of us not leaning into the fear. And this is a main reason why we need God. Because when we're going through heartbreak, guys, is that it's actually in the unknown that God does his best work. It's actually in the waiting season that God does his best work. And I know for me, I would rather trust in God's plan than my own control. Because I found through my track record is when I try to control situations, it leaves me ending in heartbreak. It leaves me talking crap about myself internally, and this is not what God wants for me, right? For us to be able to move forward and for us to be able to embrace uncertainty, try believing in God that has a plan for you, because he wants a great life for you. He wants happiness for you, and that's only going to happen in uncertainty. And I know that it's easier to be able to go into the road of uncertainty, believing in a God that is almighty, believing in a God that's infinite, believing in a God that's died on the cross for you, that literally loves you to death. If you can hang on to his grace during your moments of uncertainty, just watch God create a new beginning that you didn't even know that was a part of your future. Now, this part of my life has really, again, led me to have a relationship with Jesus. There's parts that I am not going to say because I don't feel comfortable talking about this online, because it was me and 2 other people that have experienced this together, and that was a really hard time for us to go through. A hard time for her, a hard time for me. This is when I felt the most rejection I've ever faced in my life. This is when I felt, honestly, the worst that I felt in my life. I've never felt bad enough. I never felt good enough. And a lot of those conclusions have come from the heartbreaks that I've faced. But that doesn't mean that the other person walking through it wasn't feeling that way as well. And so we just never know. We never know what's going on in someone else's mind. But what we do know is that we have a God that loves us, and His grace is always going to cover your insecurities. It's always going to cover your false narrative, and it's always going to go ahead and cover your negative self-talk about yourself. It's not going to be easy, but I challenge you guys to go on the road of the unknown, because I promise you, God has something in store for you that's going to be great. The third reason is anxiety. And this is something that is really on my heart because I know so many of us face anxiety, and I know that so many of us might feel like we're on an island with our feelings. You know, we isolate ourselves because we might feel like others are not necessarily struggling with the same challenges that we have. And let me just tell you guys that that is not the truth. For me, this anxiety really came from me not allowing myself to feel these emotions. It's almost like trying to keep a beach ball underwater, where it's almost like impossible, and at some point in time, that beach ball is going to obviously come back up, right? For me, I would stuff my emotions. I would not let myself feel these emotions, and I didn't know it at the time, but you know, I was using things like people pleasing, right? Trying to get validation from the group. I wanted to be the guy. I wanted to be liked. I didn't know that that was actually kind of a manifestation of these feelings that I was stuffing inside, right? For me, it was alcohol. I would always say yes to, you know, getting blacked out because I always liked when I was funny and I made a joke and I got, you know, some laughter from the crowd because it made me feel really good, right? I didn't know that me turning to Molly was me wrapping up an identity that I felt like I wasn't enough, right? And these feelings, for anyone that has experienced them, okay, and we all experience feelings, I promise you, if you stuff them inside and you do not have a place to be able to go to, a safe spot to talk about these feelings, to even you verbally saying it out loud, this was a huge game changer for me, and it was really a huge reason why I came to Christ. This anxiety got really bad for me, guys. It got so bad, and honestly, this was one of the scariest moments of my life. The anxiety turned to panic attacks, and I was suffering panic attacks for really like a year straight. I think I had like 8 of them, and they lasted like an hour long. I mean, I literally felt like I was dying. I would get tunnel vision. I would get tingles in my fingertips all the way up to my shoulder where I could not feel my left arm. I was panicking. I literally thought that I was not going to be able to make it through that hour. You know, if you've ever done a plank for a minute, that minute, it seems like so long because you cannot stop focusing on the pain, right? The shakiness of your abs, all of the things that are uncomfortable. It was like that times 100 for me. And I'm really not trying to be dramatic, but this was a real reason why I believe in God. And mind you guys, I moved to Austin and this stuff was still happening. I went to brain therapy for 8 months and this stuff was still happening. Okay, this anxiety that I was feeling. I could not go to social situations because I was so terrified what people thought of me, and I was so in my head. I was literally taking note of all of the little things that my body was telling me, okay? The one thing, okay, that I can say is so true that has gotten me through having this anxiety, because it's subsided a lot, was my relationship with Jesus. I went to a church called Red Rocks here in Austin. And man, I never thought I was gonna be a church guy, okay? But I went to church, okay? And I joined a group, fellowship. And for the first time in my life, those feelings that I was suppressing so much, I actually voiced them to these guys. I didn't feel any judgment. I only felt love. They met me with support. They met me in the middle, and that felt so good because I didn't feel like I had to put a mask on anymore. See, that's what the Lord can do, okay? We can take off our mask because He already knows what's underneath that mask, okay? And He is going to be able to look at you as a son or a daughter, and He's gonna love what He sees. And for me, when I joined this group and I continuously showed up week by week and I voiced what was going on in my life, and I then found scriptures that I could relate to whenever things got challenging, whenever I needed help, I would go to the group leader and I would tell him this is what's going on in my life. I would show up to church. Now I'm serving, and now I'm giving back to people. Just the other day, I was able to pray over homeless people. And I promise you guys that if you feel like your life is so bad, just open up your eyes, man. Get your eyes off of yourself and start to serve with a servant's heart. If you want to be able to see the gifts and the beauty of this world, make someone else smile. Go out of your way even when you don't feel like doing it to serve others. I promise you, this is going to light something inside of you that you're going to it's going to feel like you're at rest. And that was what it was like for me when I said yes to Jesus, is that I could finally rest. And guys, it's still a challenge. Like I said before, it's not going to just be easy, okay? This is a constant evolution of us repenting, which just means to turn, right? Because we're gonna fuck up. And yes, I cussed. We're gonna mess up, guys. We're gonna mess up, and you're gonna continue to. But that's just because we are sinners by nature, right? Because we want things to be about ourselves. And I promise you, if you accept life with Jesus as your mentor, as the professor of your life, okay, as the shepherd, and you surrender, there is so much freedom and weight that's going to be lifted off of you, and you're going to finally be at rest. So that was a little bit of my testimony. I can't wait to be able to do this podcast because truly this is for spiritually curious people. This is for people looking for rest in a chaotic world where culture shapes us, right? And we're told on how we need to act. I promise you, there is a better way to go about this. You're not in control. The man upstairs is. And I'm going to continue to take people through workouts and have genuine conversation. And I hope the conversation you can relate to. And I hope it just wakes up and stirs up something inside of your heart and your mind where you at least are open to the idea that a God's real, that a relationship with Jesus is going to be able to heal the foot race that we all feel.